Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie, and I'm joined on the camera with the Aardvark. And on the other vehicle, we have Scott and the Wildebeest also on camera. So to all of our regulars, welcome back. And to any new viewers, this is a live safari. So everything that you are seeing is what we are seeing right now in the Sabi Sands. It is a beautifully warm day today. 25 degrees Celsius, which is around 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm wearing shorts for the first time in probably about 2 months, so I'm excited about the prospect of spring and warmer climes. So for this afternoon, our plan is to check the cut line. So this morning on the Sunrise Safari, there was a cheetah just around the Buffelshoek and aptly named cheetah cut line. So I'm just going to take a chance and see if it's still around in the area. You never know, it might be moving towards getting later in this afternoon. And I also want to see if the Nkuhuma Pride are going to start moving back into Djuma. They were just east of our boundaries, or reported to be east of our boundaries this morning, so I'm keen to see what they've been up to. So guys, don't forget, it is an interactive safari, so if you want to send through questions or comments, you can do so at #SafariLive on Twitter or questions@wildearth.tv. So let us hit the road and see what we can find. So guys, I hear that there were reports of elephants around Djuma Dam at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. So I think that I will stick my nose in there at some point and just have a look, see if they're still in the area. As I'm sure many of you by now know, I really love elephants and I cannot spend enough time with them. But I do just want to check around quite carefully for tracks at the moment, just to see if we can see that cheetah one last time. And for those of you who are really regular viewers and have been watching for a couple of months now, I chatted to the Wildebeest this afternoon when he was back from his morning drive, and we spoke about the cheetah that was seen on quarantine clearings around the end of March. And we compared the photos and the spot patterns, and it is definitely the same individual that we've been seeing recently around the cut line. So very, very exciting. Now becoming a bit of a regularly seen animal on the WildEarth safaris. So the cheetah spots will stay exactly the same throughout their lifetime. So a very nice and easy and reliable way of checking their identity. It's not always that easy to do, because if you get a photo at a strange angle, maybe their shoulder is slightly turned or bent, or their body's moved around in an odd way, it can distort the way that you see the spot patterns. Kind of is really obviously large spots connected to small spots or strips of spots that make a nice clear pattern, and then you start looking carefully at the pictures and look for those identifying features. Areas that I usually focus on when I'm identifying a cheetah, it's usually around the shoulders and the legs, because their spots tend to be a little bit irregular around there, and then potentially along the flanks, but I focus more on the shoulders and the hips than anything else, unless I've got a nice really clear photo of the face. And if you're not sure, it's always good to check both sides, so the left side and the right side of the cheetah. So we are still quite a distance away from where the cheetah was seen this morning, but I wanted to start here just to see if I could pick up any tracks in case he had decided to change his route and start heading towards one of the closer dams in this area. But something zebra. Yeah, looks like zebra to me. But still way ahead, so we'll make our way to them. Oh no! Lost my hat, and it's not even my hat. It is Nikki's hat. She's been kind enough to lend it to me. But it just... So I'm going to collect it. Can't do that. There we go. Would hate to lose Nikki's hat. Just trying to keep out of the sun a little bit until my cap returns from its unplanned holiday. So what I've observed over the last few days, and I have only been on Juma for about 10 days now, can't believe how quickly that's gone. But what I have observed recently is that that male cheetah is actually walking from Sydney's dam and down this cut line and around, is hanging out around this area, and has been for about, well, certainly almost as long as I've been here. So the last 10 days it has been in this area. So for cheetah, it's always difficult to describe exactly how their home ranges work. It's quite unusual, but female cheetah will actually stray further afield than the males, and they actually have enormous home ranges, almost to the point that they can be considered to be quite nomadic. And the male cheetah will actually try and establish smaller territories that they will regularly patrol the boundaries of, and they will mark using urine spraying and claw marks on trees, etc. And they will mark those territories, and they'll try and find the best hunting area for them to attract females to come and to move into their territories so that they can have mating opportunities. Now this is a lone male, and for the most part cheetah are solitary cats, but the males do often form coalitions just to increase their chances of success. Obviously 2 is always better than 1, and 3 is even better. So they do that, but they are fussy about who they form territories with. So they're very insistent it must be males from potentially the same litter, maybe at a stretch cousins, but almost inevitably it's brothers from the same litter. Nice and slowly towards the zebra. Hopefully they stick around. I appear to be tumbling off my booster seat as well, so I'm just going to correct that. I need to have sort of several layers of cushions and pillows and blankets in order for me to be able to sit up and see over the edge of the bonnet, because we can't all be as tall as people like Brent and Scott and Steph. More James. Okay, so the stallion is still around. There were more, but I think the rest of his herd have moved off. I actually think there's something that was irritating him in his mouth, which is why he was doing that head shake there. Maybe potentially a fly or something like that, or maybe a piece of grass stuck in an odd place. Just shift back so we can get that branch out of the way. He's definitely got something that's irritating him. I'm quite curious to see what it is. I don't know what's bugging him. I don't know if potentially he's been stung by something around his face, or a fly's flown into a nostril, or something along those lines. Or maybe he's just got a blade of grass stuck between two teeth. But whatever it is, he's not enjoying it very much. So I've got a great update from Jacqueline from Savannah, Georgia. And Jacqueline was the one, or one of the people who reported that there were elephants around the Arathusa this morning, and that they headed right as she was looking from the camera. So they headed off probably, I think that would be the easterly direction, but don't quote me because I'm not entirely sure. But I do know that Scott is in that area, so I will keep him updated on that. And speaking of Scott, I'm sure you guys are wondering what he's been up to and what he's been doing since the beginning of this afternoon's drive. So with no further ado, I will send you across to Scott, and I will catch up with you guys a little bit later.
We're not live, are we?
No, not yet.
Well, hello everyone, and if you've been with us for a while, apologies. Having some problem with comms with the final control room, but welcome on board with myself, Scott. I'm teamed up with VM this afternoon, and you may hear some bushes crashing just in front of us. And this is the reason why. We've literally just stumbled upon this herd. I'm not sure how many are here, but it sounds like we have got off to a great start this afternoon. It sounds like you had a fun sighting with the zebra to start off with, and now some elephants. At this stage of the day, it's still quite hot, and I expect their movements to be quite slow and relaxed, which will be great for us because we won't have to go too far, I don't think, to keep up with them. They don't look to be highly mobile. And this is a nice, cool, shady spot that they've chosen to find some food. Now, if this is your first time joining LiveSafari, a very, very warm welcome. And it's important that you know that we can interact with you, and it's very easy. All you have to do is send through your questions or comments to questions@wildearth.tv, or send an email through to, or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So questions@wildearth.tv or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. There's no guarantee that your question will be answered, but we do our best to answer as many questions as we can. So if we have yet to answer your question, keep trying. And if it's your first time watching, please send through a question. It's always great sharing new names that send through questions. Not that there's anything wrong with our regulars, but the more the merrier here on Safari Live, so we do like to get to know some new people from time to time. Looks like a young bull, and you might give us some attitude. Come on then. Show us how big and tough you are. Just like adolescent humans, the animals can have similar tendencies, and these young males often like to come charging up to prove how big and tough they are. And you'll notice that small seeping of liquid behind the elephant's eye. That's a temporal gland that will seep when elephants are excited or agitated. It's hard to read into their exact emotion, but you should be cautious of them when they are leaking from those temporal glands. What is this slightly older bull coming to also show us how big and strong he is? Hello, boy. You would have noticed also earlier how the initial bull was picking up sand and blowing it into the air. That again was just a sign of slight uneasiness. So that little behavioral indicator is a great one to look out for, and give maybe larger elephants performing that same maneuver a little bit of a wider berth. Now, the tree that one has just plucked out of the ground and is now chewing on, from the base of the stem upwards. Did you see that, Liam, or not?
It wasn't shot, sort of.
Okay, you may have seen a small green bush come flying into the corner of your shot there. That was the younger bull tossing it, again showing how big and strong he is. As I was saying though, the individual on the right has been snapping off some round leaf teak branches, and it's quite specific at this time of the year, especially the winter months, that they will target these specific teak plants, and often not to feed on the leaves, simply to strip off the bark, chewing on it like a piece of spaghetti. And it's due to elephants that those round leaf teak do not grow up into beautiful big trees. There was one where I used to work in the southern Sabi Sands, and I was speaking about it this morning. You always wonder how these trees actually survive it to adulthood. But I guess Mother Nature's got that all worked out. As I was saying though, those round leaf teaks would naturally grow into beautiful big trees, but here the elephants keep them stunted. Let's move a little bit closer. Hello, Judith in North Carolina. It's good to have you on board with us, and thanks very much for sending your question through. Judith is interested to know how many toes do the elephants have on their front feet and their back feet, or toenails rather. And I'm actually not sure, Judith, so let's take a closer look and try and see. And that is the wonderful thing about this interactive safari, is that everyone's different thoughts and ideas creates us to focus on different things, different parts of the animal. And now we need to try and find some shots of the elephant's feet, which is not easy. Oof. Well, I hope some of you are maybe having better luck than me counting. I cannot work out what's going on. But I am just looking through my binoculars, and I don't think I'll be getting as close as VM will be getting you with this new little camera that we're using. Tricky to see here, Judith, but we're going to have to just keep looking, and hopefully we'll be able to work it out. I don't know why, but I'm leaning towards 4 toes on each foot. All the other elephants are sadly not in a more favorable position than the one we are trying to see their toenails. But what we can read into this in the meantime is that when tracking elephant, you do not see any sign of their toenails left in their tracks. You just see a very big oval shape. The front foot being slightly more rounded than the back foot's. Back foot's more oval than the front's. And if any of you know the answer to this question, you can put us out of our misery while we try and count the toenails of this elephant and let us know. That'll be really helpful. But rhino and hippo, for example, you can see evidence of their toenails. Hippos will have 4 toenails, evidence in their track, and rhino just 3. It's surprising, on such a big animal, it's difficult to count how many toenails they have. They're continuing to attack the round leaf teak. And isn't it wonderful how they use their feet to help snap off those branches right at the base? Whenever you see little clusters of these round leaf teaks when we're driving off-road, we have to pay special attention to them, because the elephants almost create a bonsai effect because they keep plucking the new shoots out. What will happen is a very hard and solid base will form that's often hidden by grass, and all the shoots keep sprouting out of that yearly, but it leaves a very nasty and solid wooden stump that can cause some trouble when off-roading. Now, the reason why I headed out here to Arethusa is because this morning there was a pack of wild dogs seen here, but they headed west out of Arethusa towards the end of the morning broadcast, and I bumped into Adam, one of the trackers from Arethusa between drives, and he said that they'd actually come back onto Arethusa and had even come down to the waterhole to drink. So I'm surprised none of you saw that. Maybe the waterhole camera was not being monitored. Anyway, we will head out and hopefully find these wild dog a little bit later. But for now we'll stay with the elephants. We'll leave the Arethusa guides to have a look around for them. Apologies, we did get an update from Christine saying she saw them at the Arethusa waterhole at 10:30. So thanks very much, Kathleen, for sending us through that update, and that's why we are here, and I hope that we may find some wild dog. I can kind of show you what I mean by the bonsaiing effect on these round leaf teaks. These two in front of us, the one to the left of the one he's feeding on, has done quite well to get that big, but you sometimes only have about 6 or 12 inches of a very similar stump sticking out of the ground. And you can see how few branches are left on those two larger trunks, indicating that they do get attacked heavily by the elephants, keeping them small. Just going to creep forward a little bit more. You can see a similar thing happening to the round leaf teak that he's currently feeding on now. Okay, well, a big thank you to Tracy in Indiana, and I've forgotten who the other, Vivian in Canada, as well as Stefan in the final control room, for putting us out of our misery and letting us know that elephants have got 5 toenails on the front foot and 4 on the back. So there we go, Judith. And thanks very much for all of your help. Now watch closely here. It'll continue to strip all the bark off this branch until it gets up to the leaves usually, and then it discards it. There we go. And they've got perfectly designed slabs of tooth with angled ridges on them that quite easily strip the bark off these branches. Although it must be said that they are not the most efficient of feeders out here. Their droppings look very much like the plant matter that went in, so they've got a very poor digestive system, and that's why they need to feed on such huge quantities of plant matter every day. Well, Sammy in Ohio, who's just 12 years old, is interested to know, how does the elephant manage to actually strip off that bark without chewing the rest of the branch inside? And it's a very good question, because their teeth, like I said, have got lots of ridges in them, so little bumps on them that help to peel off the bark and also to crush leaves. But they can also be very delicate, and the way they use their trunk to just help peel off that bark is almost like peeling the sweet wrapper off the sweet, you could say, but we just use our hands. So they are very delicate, and that trunk of theirs can help them in finely twisting the branch as they chew on it very gently, and that way they only get off the bark, which is the nutritious part of the plant. The inside of the plant doesn't have any tasty nutrients or vitamins for the elephant, so it just eats the part that's best for it. and leaves the rest behind. Now this other elephant looks like it's busy feeding on a very thorny plant, a very thorny acacia tree, with long thorns like toothpicks on them. So that in order to get enough energy and nutrition from them, you also notice how delicately they can use their trunk to snap off these little branches. They also do have very tough skin, and we would be jumping and screaming if we were trying to do the same thing with our hands. Those are very, very sharp thorns on the acacia tree. And whenever you do see elephants, you see them eating, and Lioness Star has just mentioned how tricky it can be. What are you doing chewing on your trunk? Eh? And Lioness Star, as I was saying, is very interested to note how the plants can even grow with the elephants feeding on them so much, and it just goes to show that in a perfect ecosystem, the elephants will eat enough plants to keep the vegetation from becoming too thick, which would mean the other animals wouldn't be able to feed and have the correct habitats. So it's a very necessary destruction that they do perform. But like you say, I can't agree more with you than you wonder, how do any plants actually grow up with these elephants permanently snapping and eating just about anything they move past? Now they are moving off into quite thick bush, so but before we go, we'll answer a few more questions, and we've just got one through from Pamela. Hello, and good to have you with us. Pamela would like to know, how old will elephant be when they start growing their first sets of tusks? And they will start growing them from birth. They'll have two different sets within their life. Their first set will usually fall out at around 6 months of age, and often it's before we can even see them or notice them. They're called milk tusks, so very short tusks that we seldom actually see. Once those drop out, their second set of tusks start growing, and then if any of those break or snap off, that's bad luck. They've only got that one set that they can use for their whole adult life. I'm not sure if you heard that, but you may have. And that was an elephant flatulating. It's a very useful noise to know in the bush, because it can often be the first sign that may alert you to their presence. I remember the first time I was witness to that, I was in Kenya with a good friend of mine, and this was before I had spent much time in the bush and was still learning the ropes. And it was incredibly thick bush, and all the people in the vehicle said, "Oh, there's elephants nearby." And I said, "How do you know?" And they said, "Well, it's quite simple, we just heard it flatulate." And I thought they were talking rubbish, but a few moments later the elephants popped out, so it can be useful, but difficult to know whether you heard it or not. We've been very lucky, as I said earlier. These elephants are moving very slowly, and that's because it's still quite hot. So what that might mean is the good places to check now, maybe water holes in the hotter, warmer hours of the day. They tend to be more productive, so I may head off to the Arathusa waterhole and also get an update from the guides as to the last position or tracks of the pack of wild dog that we've seen. I believe there's about 8 to 10 of them, possibly more. So hopefully the next time I see you we'll be chasing down after some wild dogs. Anyway, until then, we are going to send you back to Jamie and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, guys, and I'm just going very, very slowly around this area. So I'm just at Wari Pan, which was where the Nkuhumas had a buffalo kill last week. So I know for a fact, because I went and found it, that the carcass is off deep into the block over there. And we had a very curious moment as we were driving down the road. There was a big, big bird of prey right in the middle, and it flew off as soon as we came down, and unfortunately I was facing straight into the sun, so I didn't get a very good impression of it, but I do know that its wingspan went almost from one side of the road to the other. Now I'm thinking vulture. My instinctive reaction was a white-backed vulture, but I cannot work out why it was on the ground here and what it was looking for and actually where it's gone now, which is why I'm driving so slowly. I'm just keeping an eye out in all of the trees in this area, and I can't seem to find it. Now I know that vultures will sometimes come and eat lion scat, so the lion feces, but typically that tends to be one of the smaller species, so the hooded species of vulture. This was definitely not a hooded vulture, it was far too big. So we're gonna have to go with my initial conclusion that it was a white-backed vulture. I don't know what it was eating, I cannot figure it out. And I cannot figure out where it went. I know exactly which direction it flew off in, and I'm not having any luck relocating it. But just while we are in the area, I thought I would hop across to Buffelshoek Dam just to see if there is still that hippo around in that dam, and if there's anything else that's come for a late afternoon drink, maybe a cheetah, maybe the lions. You never know what you might find. I have got lion tracks in the road, but they're not very fresh. Amazing how a bird that big can disappear like that. My only conclusion is that it was a white-backed vulture and that it is in the area of the lion kill. Maybe there was a piece of the carcass that had been dragged separate to the main carcass, and that the vulture had landed and maybe was snacking on it, or at least looking for something down on the ground. But when it did fly off, it didn't seem to have anything, and I couldn't find anything on the road. So I'm as baffled as you guys are. I've got no idea what is going on there. So there is some activity down at the dam. Not sure yet if our hippo friend is still there. We do have some buffalo. What's interesting for me is during my time here over the last 10 days, I've actually yet to see a breeding herd of buffalo. It's very, very interesting. I know that they are around, but so far all I have seen has been groups of dugger boys, male bachelor groups of buffalo. And it seems today is going to be no exception. Don't see any sign of our hippo friends. Sorry, I've parked Andrew on a bit of a slope here. So there we have a group of these male buffalo just cooling down and taking a bit of shelter from the afternoon heat. And it is fairly warm, in the region of 24, 25 degrees still, and the sun is definitely stronger. So they very characteristically spend their days resting and relaxing around these dams and around mud wallows in summer. And that one looks, on the right, looks very, very contentedly asleep. So I've had some of my most interesting walking encounters with buffalo. They are, or they can be, very, very dangerous animals to walk on foot. They are often very curious, and they'll approach you with their noses and their heads up just to see what's going on. But typically the breeding herds are not too much of a threat unless there's something that scares them towards you. But other than that, they tend not to be too serious of a threat to you on foot. But these old males tend to be a little bit more grumpy and cantankerous, and they often sleep quite deeply in the mud wallows or at dams. So when you do surprise them, they can be quite ferocious in their charges. And already we can see the flies are gathering. So far they haven't found me yet. I don't know about you, Andrew, but
They're all over.
they're all over Andrew, so that means they're coming for me next. Especially now that it's a nice, warm, slightly sweaty afternoon. And I have in the past been chased up a tree by a buffalo bull. Not an experience that is all that uncommon, but not one I care to repeat more than I have to. So the mighty buffalo bull is actually something that a Zulu warrior called Shaka Zulu used to model his attack strategies on. So back in this sort of, I can't remember his exact dates, but we're looking sort of 200 years in the past or more, he would form warriors, and he'd have the warriors attack and advance to the front, and then he would have horns on either side, so flanking forces that would move around and surround the enemy. and he described it as, or it has been described as, the horns of the buffalo of his attacking forces, and he did overrun many other Zulu tribes in KwaZulu-Natal and around that area using this attack that he had modeled on the horns of a buffalo. There you can see that one is ruminating, so chewing the cud balls just while he has a chance, while he's lying down. Food that will have been ingested earlier in the day, that's now brought up in a bolus just to re-chew and then to swallow again and send across to his second out of 4 stomachs. They do look very peaceful. And that one has really taken relaxation to a whole new level, and if it weren't for the tail flicking against the flies, we might. He's completely flat. So I don't think that these gentlemen are going to be up to much over the next few minutes. I don't think that position is going to change very far at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way out of the somewhat slopey dam wall, make my way off here and back out onto the road, and I will be searching for that cheetah and whatever else we can find in this area. It is one of my favorite parts of this reserve. So while I'm negotiating my way out of the dam, I will send you back across to Scott, and I will see you guys a little bit later.
Welcome back, and it sounds like you've been having a very relaxing time at the Buffelshoek waterhole, along with the old buffalo bulls, who can really get comfortable at the waterholes, especially during the hotter hours of the day. We are nearing the Arathusa waterhole, which is where the wild dog were seen earlier this morning. Apparently they were quite full-bellied, and I'm hoping they haven't gone too far before lying down and resting. And I'm just checking very carefully along these roads for any sign of tracks. I've got mixed reports. I've got reports from one guide's tracker to tell me to check the western side of the Arathusa waterhole, and another guide's tracker to tell me to check the eastern side. So we are currently checking the eastern side on our way to the western side, just to make sure we don't miss anything. But so far I have not seen any tracks, although here they are, I think. I'm just going to get out here and check this junction quite carefully. Okay, well, there are certainly some tracks of at least a few individuals heading down into this riverbed. I think it's quite a busy road. The camp's doing a bit of construction at the moment, and I think the guys are storing some of their supplies in the bush nearby here. Which means I think there may have been quite a lot of vehicle traffic up and down this road between the game drives. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop around here. Whether we took a loop to the right or the left of the general movement of tracks, we need to check both. And as we drive along here, I'm just going to check very carefully in all the shady spots. What concerns me is that I didn't see tracks of a lot of wild dogs. I just saw tracks of 2 or 3 individuals coming down that road. So it could have been that they were hunting there this morning, who knows? They move such massive distances, these animals, in very short spaces of time, which makes it difficult to try and pinpoint their movements, and tracking them can always be a bit of a lottery, but we don't get to see them very often, so it is definitely worth us trying. And now every little dog shape that I see, I get excited and think it's a wild dog. There's some elephant droppings in the shade that got me excited just now. What I'd like to do is check. There's a small riverbed that they may have used as a highway after moving down that short stretch of road. So let's just check this riverbed very carefully up ahead here. Come on, wild dogs. I'll take a quick look at these crested francolin and wait here a few moments. Maybe we'll hear some alarm calls or the high-pitched chattering of the wild dog as they wake up. They make a very high-pitched whining noise when they greet one another when waking up in the mornings and afternoons. And if we were anywhere in that general area, we'd certainly be able to hear that. Just going to take another very short walk here, just to check they didn't use this riverbed. Okay, well, no sign of them here, but tracking is often a process of elimination, and as we cross off certain areas, we'll be able to go and search new ones, which is going to be the next plan. Sadly, it appears that nobody is interested in finding the wild dogs this afternoon, which is interesting. I think they all got to see them this morning, and now are heading off elsewhere to show their guests the other animals. So we don't at this stage have much help, but I guess anybody who is driving around this general area could bump into them at any stage. Just going to go back to those last tracks now and have a closer look exactly where they go. There is another road that I feel will take us in a slightly better general direction. It'll be interesting to know which pack of wild dog this is, because, like I said, I'm not sure if it's 8 or 10 members or which pack it is, but all of the packs in this area at the moment are currently denning, so they may have moved quite some distance in order to come hunting here, and will be required to head back towards the den site to share the spoils with the rest of the pack. And all the puppies, all the parents will contribute to regurgitating food for the mother who may be staying at the den, and for all the pups who will be starting to feed on meat now. They're probably a month or just over old, most of the pups. Okay, I think we've got good news, because the tracks appear to be heading down this little pathway. Come on, wild dogs. Like I said earlier, it's still quite warm, and I'm hoping that warmth is going to keep the wild dogs stationary for at least the next half an hour or so. But there may come a point in time where it cools down enough for them to start moving again, and when they start moving, it's going to be incredibly difficult to keep up with them. Now, a little bit earlier we got an update from Kathleen letting us know that she saw the wild dogs there. And Kathleen, I'm wondering if you managed to count how many there were in the pack. We don't see the packs very often, so I'm actually not sure which pack is which, but we will be able to work it out. As long as we know how many individuals were there, it'll certainly help us piece the puzzle together. I'm told that one of the packs in the surrounding area has given birth to 2 different litters, so the alpha female and beta female have both given birth to different litters, and they'll probably be staying back at them, looking after all the pups, while the rest of the pack come and hunt. Oh, there's so many good places for them to rest and relax in the shade here. But for all we know, they could be many miles away back at their den sites. Maybe their urge to feed the other pack members caused them to override the warm temperatures and their full bellies. This is probably a false alarm, but I need to double check. It was what I think we should do now is let Veerman must be
I'm sick of it. Oh, fascinating little dynamic creatures. Always interesting to watch. Oh, just having a little clean and a big spine. With lots of tunnels everywhere. And I can hear some more scurrying around and foraging around in the grass in this area. But I can hear contact calls as well. But between the various individuals in this family. Sweet. And also, they're much more, so very, very tiny little creatures. Alpha breeding pair. Kill the babies just to ensure it's and keep rank. And imagine, because
herbivores out here that are ruminants, therefore they have 4 chambered stomachs that highly effectively digest whatever they put into their mouths. Elephants have got a very rudimentary digestive system, and the plant matter passes through the elephants almost the same way that it went in. And Deb would like to know if I would think the elephants would be much bigger if they had a more effective digestive system. I guess possibly, Deb, that certainly does seem like a plausible theory, but I don't know enough about the inner workings of them. But you can't help but feel that if they could digest food better, they would be bigger. Again, it is important to mention that both hippo and rhinoceros are also not ruminants, and they're also very large animals. And you get some of the very smallest antelope in this area which are ruminants. So, a good question, and it would be an interesting one to know the exact answer to, but I am not too sure. As I was saying earlier, I think we should try and invest some time in this general area, as the pack of wild dogs could come running past at any moment. And I think where we are with these elephants is not a bad place to wait. But maybe in about another 5 or 10 minutes we'll do another loop around this area and see if anything has changed. I've got a suspicion that the wild dogs are going to use the Arathusa airstrip to head back south from where they came. Wild dogs often like using the large open areas to move through. And often if they are passing in the general vicinity of an airstrip, they'll quite often end up on it. The only catch is that the Arathusa airstrip is undergoing a serious makeover, and it is no longer going to be dirt, it is going to be tarmac, and all of that construction may cause a bit of an issue. And a little bit earlier on, Blair asked, all the way from Canada, how is the airstrip makeover coming along? And they're still doing a lot of the groundwork, Blair. They've yet to lay down any tar. And I'm actually not too sure what the forecasted project completion date is. But at the moment, they are still in the very early stages of that. Such beautiful golden afternoon sunlight. And those tiny tusks that you can see sticking out there would be the main set of tusks growing out of that elephant. The milk tusks that we spoke about earlier would have already fallen out at anywhere from 6 months to a year of age. And that young elephant's probably around 2.5 to 3.5 as my guesstimate. While we try to reposition, Jamie's in a great position, so shoot over to her quickly and we'll see you shortly.
Sorry to interrupt you guys, but we just had to show you this adorable little nyala that we've stumbled across here, just close to the drainage line. And this little one is still sticking very close to Mum, but I'm going to try and get us a slightly better view. It moved off just as we came down. No, it's going to stay tucked away. Maybe we can get it a bit closer. How's that, Andrew? Is that okay?
That's good.
Very, very sweet. I'd put it at maybe 2 months or a little bit older. These antelope do grow very, very rapidly, which is obviously necessary if you live in this big, scary world out here in the wild. So they do mature very quickly. Their mothers have got very nutritious milk. As you can see, already starting to browse at whatever's available, even though it is so young. And the little babies have very, very cute contact calls. I've heard them before. And they sound a little bit like baby lambs. When lambs are calling to their mothers, it's almost like a bleating sound. So very sweet. Here you can see just the flash of that white tail. And you can see how effectively that draws the eye. Unfortunately, I think our little baby is going to disappear off into this thick block here. We're not going to see much more of it, but we just wanted to bring you guys across very quickly just to have a look at it, because it is quite adorable. So, since it is disappearing off with Mommy, which is a good thing because we want it to stay nice and safe and tucked away and hidden, I'm going to send you back across to Scott, and I will catch up with you guys a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And Babies are currently not in the best spot, so we are going to reposition. And interesting to see a tiny baby Nyala at this time of the year. But that is the wonderful thing about being out on safari, is you never know what to expect. Even though there are set trends that will usually play out, you will often get surprised along the way. Oh, the little baby's getting a bit of attitude. Oh, right. Two of them are doing exactly the same thing at the moment. Sadly, I don't have a monitor, so I'm not sure what you are seeing. But the mother and the calf are both feeding simultaneously on the same branch, or the same type of branch rather, again the round leaf teeth. And that seems to be the flavor of the day. You'll see how they'll use their trunk to wrap around the base of these plants and then kick the bottom of them to get as much of the stem as they can. Although they have wonderful hairy chins, the elephants. And from time to time we do get angles looking straight into their mouths, and that's also a very interesting view to see. Here comes the next load. And another big cow popping out in the background. What a beautiful sight this is. It's cooling down quite considerably now, which is meaning the elephants are probably going to start moving a little bit faster. And it also means the wild dog that we're hanging around in this area for may also hop up and start causing chaos. You often see a lot of antelope fleeing the scene whenever wild dog are around. Well, hello Matty in Ohio. Good to know you're watching, and thanks for welcoming me back. It's very good to be back in the bush. Matty is interested to know, will the wild dog be scared of the elephants? And yes and no. They will be cautious of them. If the elephants start to chase them, the wild dog will run away. But because they are so quick, I've seen wild dog often running quite close past the elephant because they know that they are fast enough to escape them. So sometimes they do get a little bit cheeky and torment elephants, but the elephants are far too big for the wild dog to actually stand their ground with, and will often run off very quickly when they need to. Hopefully, Maddie, if we're patient, that might happen. There's nothing stopping these wild dogs coming running past right now. And wouldn't that be a pleasant surprise? Well, because we don't see wild dogs very often, we're answering some interesting questions about them, and keep sending them through. It really is great to chat about, you could say, this newer subject, or subject we haven't touched on too recently. And Donna would like to know, would a tracker be attacked by a wild dog when looking for them on foot? Very, very unlikely, Donna. I've never heard of any people being attacked by a wild dog in the wild, and I'm sure the only injuries that have happened have been with captive wild dogs. They are, in all the times I've seen them, very nervous of people and will always run off when you do find them. So interestingly enough, the biggest threats out here for people on foot, be it trackers or people walking in a group on a walking safari, are more often the herbivores. The hippo and the elephant and the buffalo. I'm certainly more cautious of them, especially these female elephants like the ones we're watching here, who are very protective over their young. That will cause trouble. That is not to say that predators don't pose a risk, they certainly do. But in this specific area, it's the Cape buffalo, the elephant mothers, and the hippo that you need to be very careful of. And if any of you would also like to send questions through, like Donna and Matty, it's very easy. You can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And for all of those of you who have sent through questions and haven't had them answered, apologies, keep trying. There are lots of people sending questions through, and it's impossible to answer everyone's. Now, as wonderful as it has been spending time with this herd of elephants, I feel that we should now make the most of this rare opportunity to try and find these wild dog. We've been sitting here for a long time, so enjoying the sighting of the elephants, but at the same time being able to listen for any alarm calls. Sadly, we haven't heard anything useful for us, but I think it will be doing a drive around. Maybe we'll find some fresh tracks of them. It's at this stage of the afternoon that they will in all likelihood become active and start moving back towards their den. Very good. So basically the last tracks we had of the wild dog was straight ahead of us, probably about half a mile, and the general direction was here. We looped around the block, had no sign of their tracks coming out, but it's a fairly large block, and to walk through the whole thing looking for them would have taken too long. So we just need to do one big loop around again, and maybe, like I say, we'll find some tracks of them fresh as they've started moving this evening. Better than that, my prediction of them running down the airstrip will hopefully come true. And we are just about to arrive on the airstrip. Come on, wild dog. Earlier on, Matty asked whether or what would happen if the wild dogs came across the elephants, and I said that elephants would probably chase them. Oh, let's see if we can. Well, we've still got two opportunities here. The lilac-breasted roller flew off, but there's still two pretty birds that VM can try and show you. While I answer the next question, but Matthew was saying earlier, what would happen if the elephants came across the wild dog or vice versa? And Laura is now asked whether we would be in any danger while we were there watching those elephants. And certainly you do need to be cautious of displaced aggression, which means aggression caused by another animal, which will get the elephants very excited and their temper going, and they could therefore take their temper and aggression out on us simply for being there. So that is a reality, especially with animals like elephants and the females with their breeding herds. They become very protective. So we would want to be very careful, and probably would try and move out of that sighting or avoid it where possible. But in that thick bush, it would have been interesting. It certainly would have. It's hard to say though, and you do need to remember that every occurrence that happens out here can differ from day to day, or interaction with various animals, and who knows, these elephants may have looked at the wild dog and not been bothered to chase them, or on the other hand they could have been very aggressive. Look, this must be awesome. The sunlight is amazing. Look at those colors. I'm guessing you can see them. Oh, the crested barbet just unceremoniously chased off a fork-tailed drongo to get to some termites who are possibly doing some renovations on their mound or looking for some new plant matter to carry into the mound, which they'll then feed on. And it appears that there is a feeding frenzy going on here. There was a hornbill in the area earlier. There's another crested barbet that's just arrived. That's below the one you're currently looking at, behind it. And even though we may not be watching wild dogs hunting, this is an equally awesome event or hunting to be watching. These crested barbets are such pretty birds, and the golden afternoon sunlight is perfectly behind us. Actually interesting, if you manage to look at both of the crested barbets, you will see that one has got far more red pigments on it than the other, which could indicate that it's a male. They are in their breeding season now. I saw two of them making love this morning. And it's often the males that will get this brighter plumage during the breeding months, and this could be a happy couple dining out on a high protein diet. The one you're on now is probably the female, and you would have noticed that she's not sporting nearly as many bright colors as the male. I noticed the female was feeding on one of the soldier termites, the biggest of the termites that will occur in the mound. I guess other than the queen, who will be a very large and unmobile unit. She's almost a big grub, a big egg-laying machine, whose sole purpose is to create as many more termites as possible. And we shouldn't worry too much about this feeding frenzy, because a very rough estimate that I've been told is that there could be as many as 2 million termites within your average termite mound. And bearing in mind that even though this isn't very high above the ground, it will stretch quite deep under the ground. Now the lilac-breasted roller that we actually stopped for earlier has flown back. And I'm going to be interested to see if it doesn't fly down and try and chase these crested barbets off, or if it's possibly just going to wait its turn. Oh, here it comes! Here it comes! Look at this! Beautiful! Well, it didn't chase the crested barbets off, but it did come and have a closer look. I believe you did get a glimpse of it there.
Okay.
The drongo is busy singing along wonderfully to us here now. There's also a Birchall starling that's arrived on the scene, which you can hear as well. Now a yellow-billed hornbill has popped onto the termite mound. It is all happening here. Well, word is out that there is an easy meal here and birds are flying in from all directions. More Birchall starlings, more greater blue-eared starlings. Awesome. Well, it's incredible how quickly word spreads out here on the Bush Telegraph. And food is the most important commodity for all animals out here. So when there's an easy meal going, the word tends to spread pretty quickly, and this is the result. 3 yellow-billed hornbills, 4 now. Another pair of crested barbets, I think, have arrived. Or the other 2 just flown off. It's hard to keep track of everything. A handful of starlings. And now that the hornbills are the biggest of the animals feeding here, they are appearing to be bullying off the smaller birds. And that was the crested barbet you may have heard calling out. Chip, 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 chip. Well, there is an array of pretty birds here, some with pretty big yellow beaks. The most comical of the birds out here. And then the starlings, which have got beautiful iridescent blue colors that iridesce wonderfully in the afternoon sunlight. And this large starling that we can see now doesn't have that bright yellow eye. It's the Birchall starling. It's the biggest of the starlings that we get here. And it's the greater blue-eared that has that bright yellow eye. We also do get the Cape Glossy. It's incredible to see how many shoots the termites are using, because the birds are feeding all around this vicinity, which means all of the workers are out collecting little dead pieces of grass that they'll carry into the termite mound, but sadly a lot of them are being intercepted. But what's important for us to learn from this is that just this termite mound that we're looking at here will provide such huge amounts of protein to the various animals, not only the birds, But as a secondary effect in the food chain, other animals will then feed on these birds. So they're a very important member of the ecosystem because they are the ones that can feed on and break down all of the dead grass and vegetation that no other animals will be interested in feeding on. And if it wasn't for the termites breaking this vegetation down, it wouldn't be recycled back into the nutrient system, and there would just be dead vegetation lying everywhere, preventing new vegetation to sprout up. And it's believed that the entire weight of termites within most African ecosystems will often actually outweigh the weight of the herbivores and the mammals, rather. So even though they are small, they are extremely numerous, and their high numbers provide a lot of food to the smaller animals, and that in turn gets passed through the food chain into all the other big animals. Well, I'm surprised the wild dog haven't come to have a look. This has been wonderful. They would have probably enjoyed this sighting as well. But no luck just yet. Well, earlier I mentioned that these termites are in all likelihood collecting food, but Dennis has just asked whether they are not potentially repairing the mound that may have... It doesn't appear like an aardvark has been attacking this termite mound. It would be quite clearly evident. They are incredibly powerful diggers. Pangolin will create less of a clear burrow or disturbance to a mound. So it could be that, but I simply think they're out collecting food, and the reason why is they not just focusing on one area, which is often what aardvark or pangolin will do. They will attack one area of the termite mound to try and get in, whereas here it appears they are all around, judging by the birds' feeding patterns, encompassing this whole termite mound. But it's good that you pointed that out, Dennis. One of the animals that will be able to actively seek out termites and not wait for them to move out of their shelter before being attacked are the aardvark and the pangolin, who are highly specialized in feeding on these animals. And I believe some of you are even managing to see the termites being tossed into these hornbills' mouths, and that's thanks to this new little camera with incredible zoom. So glad you're enjoying that. I think a lot of the birds have eaten their full and are just sitting nearby waiting for their hunger to increase again. One of the crested barbets is waiting there, or possibly it knows it's just not worth being bullied by the hornbills. But I guess just like us as humans and a lot of animals, you can only feed on so much at one point in time, and then you need to take a breather. Beautiful. Okay, well, I think we are going to leave this table for two. Just the hornbills left. But earlier it was a banquet with many different birds feeding simultaneously, and it was great lights and colors on them, so I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Now we need to focus on finding these wild dog. Time is running out. Well, 2 wild dog ran down this road earlier. How much earlier, again, hard to say. There's a lot of construction going on nearby, on both the airstrip and the camp. So, not ideal, but it does tie in quite well with Kathleen's question asking the impact of the noise made from the construction around the camp and here at the airstrip. What effect will it have on the animals? Surprisingly, a lot of the animals have become so accustomed to people and noise made by people that it doesn't really actually bother them too much. They'll probably, I guess, avoid it where they can, but I have been quite surprised by wild dog and how relaxed they can be running past people, especially when chasing prey. So maybe they've already run down the airstrip this morning or midday after they had a drink, or maybe they are somewhere nearby. We can just take a drive along. Maybe ask some of the construction workers if they've seen any strange animals running past. But if the tracks that I did just see there were fresh, we should have technically seen a few more of them. But the fact that I only saw 1 or 2 of the tracks and it appeared like most of them had been driven over, we may be a little bit far behind these animals. Although these trucks are looking better now going down this road. Come on, wild dogs. Where are you hiding? Now, apologies for the construction site that you're about to see, but there's no way around it. And what I'm going to probably do is suggest you head back to Jamie and we'll catch up a bit later once we've asked these guys for an update. We'll see you shortly.
Hi everybody, welcome back. I hear you've been having an amazing time chatting about the various birds that you saw hunting the termites in that area. Very, very awesome to see a different bird feeding party nice and clearly. So while you guys were gone, I've just been exploring the area and chatting to James, who's also out and about this afternoon looking at various tracks. And I have just picked up on some female leopard tracks that are cutting into the block here. Unfortunately, they're not that fresh, so I'm not going to spend too much time following them just because we are running out of daylight. But I'm going to just change the route that I was taking just in case we get lucky. But what I do want to do is start heading back towards the hyena den. Now, I know that there's been some speculation as to whether or not those hyenas were on the move. So for those of you who were watching the sunrise safari, you would have seen Scott with close to something like 8 or 9 hyena at one point on the move. And we are very curious to know if they are shifting den sites. Just checking to see where this leopard track, or where these leopard tracks came out. I picked them up just coming across this pan here to my left, and they did look very small to me, so very definitely a female leopard. So now I just want to see where she might have gone. I'm also going to start listening very carefully for alarm calls. No, just fresh hyena tracks instead. Lots and lots of hyena activity on Djuma at the moment. Seems like the lions have been keeping them well fed. And for those of you who are wondering, the Umkuhumas are still flat cat into the block to our east, and by the sounds of it, the Styx Pride are off our southern boundary. So possibly scared away by the presence of the Birmingham 2 days ago. a good time to be out and about, especially at this time of year. As it starts to get a little bit cooler, you start getting your nocturnal animals moving around, potentially a bit earlier in winter, which is also really, really nice. Quite a spectacular bird in the dam over here, which I'd like to just take a closer look at. So I'm just going to pop my nose in here. Hope it doesn't fly anywhere. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to let me get any closer. It is a saddle-billed stork. I'm hoping it's going to turn around just to show you those incredibly vibrant colors on the beak. It's actually quite a nice time of year for the storks, because as these water sources get smaller and smaller, it forces the fish and the various little mollusks, freshwater crustaceans, into a smaller space, making life just a little bit easier for the stork, although it does appear to be sinking into the mud as it's walking through. And I know from experience how that sticky and thick that clay-like mud can be, but that's what's actually the reason that we've still got water in this area, is that mud forms such a nice barrier and stops the water from seeping away. And just have a look under the stork's chin. And the reason I'm telling you to do that is I want to just explain a little bit about telling the difference between a male and a female saddle-billed stork. But you'll see that it has nothing underneath the chin where the beak connects to the neck. Oop, I would also fly out of the mud if my progress was that impeded. So what I'm going to do is just show you why I'm telling you to look at that particular part of the bird with a picture. This book actually isn't all that great. I've got a different bird book that shows it a little bit better. So, the stork that we were looking at just now is in fact a female, and the reason that I know that is there's nothing here under the chin. I didn't manage to get close enough to see what color its eye was, but there is no yellow wattling under the chin, and as you can see on this picture, the male has a brown eye and then just that little bit of yellow underneath. So unless I missed it completely, which I don't think I did, that is a female saddle-billed stork. So nice that you can see the difference. There's quite a few storks in number that you can actually see the dimorphism, the difference between males and females, but that is one of them. I just want to double check again at the way that the eye might be catching the light. That eye does look quite yellow, but I definitely don't see any wattling under the chin, which is very distinctive. And unfortunately, it has disappeared. So I'm going to carry on moving. And I am being called on the radio, so if you guys will excuse me for just a little bit, I'm just going to answer the question. Here are JB standing by. Negative, I didn't see those. Maar door de console. No, I do know those in Consor. The Birmingham boys were up that side, I think, yesterday morning, early yesterday morning, they went along that cut line. Right, sorry guys, I'm back with you now. Just one of the guides asking about big lion tracks on the Buffelshoek cut line. And I was just letting him know that the Birmingham boys were in the area sort of yesterday. Late yesterday evening, late yesterday morning or the evening before that, they were around that area. But unfortunately they have crossed north into Buffels cut line or Buffelshoek property. So while I try and find those gorgeous little leopard tracks that I had, and while I start making my way towards the hyena den, which I do want to do because it is starting to get dark, I'm going to send you guys back across to Scott, who's got a beautiful kudu to show you.
Welcome back, and I hope Jamie has some luck with those leopard tracks she's found. Interestingly enough, there's also been a report of a leopard vocalizing in this general area that we are in. So not only are our chances of finding wild dog fairly good here, but also possibly a leopard. But before that happens, we could get very lucky. The one kudu you saw disappearing off past the sunset is being followed by 4 more. And these 4 are possibly going to follow on its same path, meaning in the next few moments they're going to pop out into your view, and if they walk past that setting sun, it's going to make for some beautiful shots. So get ready with your screenshots. If you don't know how to do one, I would suggest Googling it very quickly to find out how to get a screenshot on your device, because there are going to be some award winners here. Not the biggest of males following. I guess the 3 in between are medium sized. The one that we saw first was the biggest, and there is one more slightly larger one trailing the rest of them. They are such majestic antelope and carry themselves as if they are kings. I guess with their really impressive spiraling horns, they are the best crowned of the antelope out here. And there's just one more to follow now. What a magical evening it is here. Get ready with the screenshots. Beautiful. Well, that was a luck, a little stroke of fortune, and maybe our luck will now continue. As we carry on in search of not only wild dogs but also a leopard that's been heard in this area. Now, the leopard, it could be possibly Tingana, the dominant male who used to really occupy this area that we're in, but is now being pushed further to the east onto Djuma, away from Arethusa, by a young up-and-coming male called the Anderson male. And Anderson male does frequent the southern parts of Djuma. We are on our southern boundary of, Arethusa. And we've only managed to see him once, and it was a very brief sighting. Imagine if we could find him now with a few more minutes of this golden sight. Doug is the guide who heard the leopard calling. And he heard it from quite far west, where there's not as much shooting down the airstrip. He's left his tracker in this general area to listen, so
Hi guys, welcome back. We do apologize for the technical issues that Scott seems to be experiencing. We've just lost him for a moment, but fear not, I'm sure we will be able to fix it fairly quickly. So you are back with me on my way to the hyena den. I do want to get there fairly quickly, just in the hope that we at least get an idea as to whether or not those hyenas have moved. But while I'm on my way, I have a question from James in Kansas City. Hi James, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Thank you for sending in your question. And James would like to know if I have ever personally been to the great battle sites at Isandlwana and Rorke's Drift in Natal. The answer to that is yes, I have. Many years ago, I was still a teenager. It was part of a school group, as part of a history lesson. But it is actually an incredibly haunting area, especially Isandlwana. And we were very lucky at the time to have a great guide who knew so much about the history. And for those of you who don't know, I don't know my exact dates. It was around the time of the Zulu Wars with the British, and there was a troop of British soldiers that were camping in the area of Isandlwana under quite a big, unique and quite lonely looking mountain, and they were surprised by an attack of Zulu warriors, and most of them were killed. Some of them managed to retreat to almost a little farmhouse in Rorke's Drift, where some of the officers were, and the officers of the British Army were able to hold off the Zulu warriors and fortify this tiny little farmhouse. But a very, very haunting place. It was one of the great lessons in that particular war for the British in terms of underestimating the power of the Zulu warriors. And if you stand there, there's a very haunting silence in the region. It's very, very isolated, and you get the wind blowing through and whistling off the mountain. And it's a very open area, and I would say even many years ago when I was still a teenager, it was quite a touching moment, and one that stayed with me throughout the years, and somewhere I'd love to go back today just to revisit now with a little bit of a more adult perspective on things. And it's one of the aspects that I really, really love about this country. We do have a very rich history, and it's full of the most amazing stories of the courage of various individuals from all different backgrounds. And we've certainly had our troubles in the past, but it is a beautiful, beautiful place filled with incredible people. So we're not too far from the hyena den, but I am going to speed up just a little bit, as we are racing the sun at the moment. a quick general question from Alexander in Saratoga, and Alex would like to know if leopards can have 3 cubs. And the answer is yes, they can. I have seen it myself. And obviously leopard cubs, as I'm sure many of you know, have quite a high mortality rate. It's a tough life out here, especially when there are lots of things out to get you. But leopards can indeed have, the average I think is 2, but they can have 3 and sometimes even 4 cubs. It's just a matter of how successful the mother is as to whether or not those cubs reach adulthood. And now as we approach the hyena den, they are slightly different, so they will only really ever have 2 cubs as a maximum, and very, very often the 1 cub will not survive, especially if 2 females are born. And there's been an extensive study done into whether or not siblicide is an issue, so one of the hyena cubs killing another, and it certainly looks to me to be all quiet. So very possibly these guys have moved on, but that is not necessarily the case. It might be that the adults are out hunting or scavenging and the cubs are just sleeping. It does look to be very, very quiet around here. Oh no, here we go. Hello, mommy. I stand corrected. There is indeed a hyena still at this den, which is great news for us. So I'm fairly certain, just from past experience, that is the youngest cub's mother, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check her spot patterns. So hyenas, spotted hyenas like cheetah, will keep that spot pattern throughout their lives. And you can see that it's, on this particular individual, it is quite faded, and there's some bald patches starting to show through, which just means that it is a slightly older individual. And if it is this particular young cub's mother, then we do know just by watching her social interactions and the social interactions of her tiny little cub, that she is a high-ranking female. If I could speculate that she is the matriarch of this particular clan, it would be speculation though, but she is definitely high-ranking. I have seen her put several other hyena in their place, and her little cub for its age is very, very bold, almost certainly a female. And whenever any of the slightly older cubs at this den try and bully that little cub, she immediately sorts them out and shows them who's boss. And that is certainly the most peaceful I have seen her look. So, if you're wondering where the cubs are, they're probably tucked away in this den, sleeping. Okay guys, I'm going to send you across to Scott very, very quickly, and we will stay with this female.
Well, our luck continues. It looks like it's Tingana. So not the Anderson male, but still a big male leopard. And aren't we lucky? It's just crossed. Listen.
Sounds like you want to pick a fight.
And maybe he's talking to the Anderson male. I hope you heard as clearly as we did here. The rasping call of a big male leopard. I think it's actually the first time that I've managed to share that with any of you, and he may well vocalize again. I just need to call in on the radio quickly that I've just located this leopard. It may interfere with the broadcast, but if it does, I'm sorry, but you have to call this in.
So sorry guys, we are still battling with those gremlins, and I know that the tech team will be working on it to get you back to Scott as quickly as possible. So we are still here just chilling out with this female who looks very happy to catch a couple of minutes rest and just enjoy the late afternoon. Does look very, very comfortable. As I was saying a little bit earlier, so as we were talking about a little bit earlier, the cubs are probably here somewhere. At the very least, the little one will be probably tucked away in these holes, and the tunnels that they make or that they excavate in certain areas will only be big enough for the smallest cub. But I do have exciting news. Scott is back, so I will send you back. I'm sure you're all excited to see the leopard.
Welcome back, everyone, and a huge apologies for that break in signal, but I had to let the Arathusa guys know. There's a few people in this area following up on the audio we've just heard him do, and he could well vocalize again. Isn't this wonderful? Just before he disappears around that corner, I just want to continue, and I hope yes, he's heading in the right direction. Perfect. Now I think the vehicle that just went flying past us didn't see us or the leopard. So they're going to have to reassess things, but he has headed deeper into Arathusa now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop ahead on the road quickly, and that way try and get some frontal shots of him for you. I just rev loudly like that because I can't chat with the guys on the radio, because otherwise we'll lose the picture to you, and the only way I can communicate to them is by revving. Not ideal, but at least we're trying our best to get them into the sighting without you guys losing picture. Now I'm guessing he's gonna keep coming straight up towards us. He's just on our right now, and it's quite open, so we're going to get some beautiful views of him. There are a few bushes in the way, but I just want to wait and see which way he decides to go. Sorry about this, everyone, but it's important for me to try my best to call these guards, and I can hear them all looking for me, and I'm avoiding them. But I did give them directions where to come in and just enjoy this now. Please call again now. Come on. Maybe the Anderson male has been here. You can see he's sniffing very intently. And it shouldn't be a great surprise if we did see them come face to face with one another. It is possible. It has happened. But we have yet to see any encounters between him and the Anderson male. That was incredible. I can't believe he called again, facing straight towards us. Absolutely awesome.
He's got an injury on his right back leg, just in front.
Okay. VM's just spotted a small wound that I'm sure a lot of you may have spotted as well. On his one leg, he's probably going to scent mark on this tree. And I'm fairly certain Anderson has been here. And has also been scent marking, and now Tingana will come and scent mark on top of his scent marks. And who knows, possibly that small wound on his leg is from a battle with the Anderson male.
Got no view on it.
Let's reposition, we just changed direction completely. Interesting that he veered off the road, possibly the sense of smell drew him into this area where Anderson may have been. That's causing him to veer off his path and make sure he ensures that he's letting Anderson know that he's not giving up without a fight. Well, that was absolutely incredible, folks. That vocalization that we got to see and hear so clearly must have been really, really awesome. It's such an interesting vocalization that lions do make. Leopards do make. Not what a lot of people would expect to hear. Almost like sawing with this saw through a big piece of wood. We're about to get another great view of him as he passes by. Okay, get ready for another great view. And I'm feeling like you could just vocalize again. Maybe I'm pushing my luck. Incredible animal to be following. Pacing through this area, marking his territory. And like I say, we shouldn't be highly surprised if we do get a glimpse of the Anderson male. And notice that flap of skin running down under his head and neck. Called the dewlap, the sign of a big male leopard. His competition, the Anderson male, is a little bit younger than him and also quite big. I'm just going to make space quickly for this other vehicle to get past us quickly. And give them a turn to have a great look. We have had such a good view already that it will be good to give them some opportunities. He's the same guy that went roaring past us earlier. I'm just going to reverse and get a few more shots of him walking down the road. It's going to be beautiful because the other vehicle is using a spotlight on him. And again, we're going to get spoiled to the very, very beautiful view of him. Now what we're going to need to do is I'm going to need to get onto the radio and find out who's on standby if I am kind of obliged to move out to make space for another vehicle. So we're going to send you back to Jamie, and hopefully we will be with them again when you come back to us, but there may be a chance that we do have to allow another vehicle to come and have a look. And we do need to share these magical moments with everyone. So over to Jamie, and we will see you all hopefully a little bit later, still with Tingana.
So guys, welcome back, and what a special afternoon this has turned out to be. So while you guys have been with Scott, I've just been sitting thinking about what a tremendous privilege it is to be able to spend so much time out in this amazing, amazing environment, and to get to experience moments like you just had with Tingana calling right in front of the vehicle. How special is that? And even just for Andrew and myself to sit and watch the sunset and the colors change, all the while right next to a hyena that is perfectly comfortable in our presence and is still as relaxed as when we first arrived here. So a really, really special evening, and how wonderful it is that we get to share it with so many people around the world who can jump on the back of our safari every single day. What a special thing that is. And it just fills me with this respect for the generations who have come before me in this area and created a safe haven for the wild animals, and to keep this environment as pristine as it has been. And to think that a scene like this has been going on for centuries throughout South Africa, and how privileged are we that we've reached the stage where we can actually witness it and share it with you all. You can see she's just shifted slightly. It's nice and comfortable and tucked away. And just while we are talking about the conservation in this area, Sammy from Kentucky would like to know if we ever medically intervene, like putting a hurt Cape buffalo out of its misery. And for the most part, Sammy, we actually don't interfere in those kinds of scenarios. If the injury is natural, or if there is a reason that the animal is sick, but it is a natural reason, then this reserve is big and it is an open system, so it needs a minimal amount of interference from the people who live and work here. And that might seem a little bit harsh, but it is nature and it is the way that things work. And an injured buffalo might make a necessary meal for lions who've been battling to hunt for a couple of days, and it might finally provide them with that lucky break that they need to get some food. So in general, if it is a natural injury, then the reserve will not interfere. However, if it is a man-influenced injury, so something like a snare caught around an animal, a snare around an elephant's trunk, or potentially around a hyena's neck, or something along those lines, then yes, most definitely, a vet will be called out, and he will come and intervene and dart the animal, put it to sleep, and just, not to sleep, I mean just anesthetize it, and help to fix that injury, and if necessary, put it out of its misery if the injury is too bad. But that will only be in cases where it is a man-made injury. There might, and I say might, be instances where if there's a very endangered injured animal, then perhaps the reserve might step in, even if there is an illness or an injury caused by natural causes. A very special moment. I still haven't seen any signs of these cubs. They haven't been moving around, and I have been sitting listening. We've been enjoying the peace of the evening, and I haven't picked up on any movement inside the den. So still we haven't fully clarified if this den is still active or if the cubs have potentially been moved out of the area, and possibly this hyena has just chosen to rest here for the time being. But there's no scuffling going about, and usually this is the time that we start to see the cubs out and about and playing. So not entirely sure. I think what I am going to do is, I don't want to sit here with the spotlight on this particular individual and shine it on her while she is trying to sleep. It potentially won't disturb her. So for now, what I'm going to do while I drive around and out of this hyena den, I'm going to send you back to Scott for a little bit of an update on his progress. And I will see you a little bit later.
Whew! Whoa! Welcome back, everyone. And wasn't that just the most awesome sighting of Tingana? Incredible. I couldn't believe it when he started vocalizing, facing straight towards the vehicle, just a few meters away. So we got incredibly lucky, and wonderful that we can share it with so many people all around the world. So happy that you got to see that. I'm sure a lot of you, it may have been the first time you've seen or even heard a leopard vocalize, and that interesting rasping as if it's cutting through a wooden log. And sadly though, we did have to make space, and you must be wondering why on earth would I have left? We had such a good quality sighting in such a short space of time that for me, I thought rather let's make space for Doug, who was the person who actually alerted us to the leopard audio initially and told me to go and check in that exact area where we found him. So it's only fair that we got Doug in there as quickly as possible so that he could show his guests, and that way not only Doug but also the other guards who are queuing behind him can all get to hopefully see that action. So like I said, not easy to leave, and trust me, I would have wanted to stay as long as I could have with him this evening, but that would be selfish of us. So let's go and look for something else rather. And that is the beauty of being out on safari. There are so many different animals we could get lucky and bump into. And I'm told there have been some wonderful screenshots that a lot of you captured. So well done, and what a great way to document all the different safaris you join us on. And not only that, but also just to document the growth and development of the various animals that we do get to see and follow quite closely, like Tingana, this male leopard, who we may be able to possibly follow for years to come. And you can compare your screenshots now with screenshots of him in months to come and see how he's aging. And that goes for a lot of the animals, the stars of the show that we get to see and follow more closely. But that's not to say that animals that we don't follow as closely also don't deserve a few photographs. And the quality of a lot of the shots you guys are getting, I'm sure could be even blown up onto canvases and hung up on the walls of your houses. So certainly worth getting into if you haven't yet. The screenshot. So we're going to start slowly meandering our way back towards Jumanal, and As we do head back towards that area, we'll certainly be passing through an area where Shadow and her cub Sindile could pop out. They've been spending a lot of time on the boundary between Arethusa and Juma, which is up ahead of us. But she also does come this far west. We're very close to the Arethusa camp. It's just behind us now. I wonder where those wild dogs ended up. Nobody's seen any sign of them. So that's a pity that we didn't get lucky there. But at least they are stretching this far afield, and maybe they'll start spending more time hunting out here. You've probably found they've decimated whatever stocks were close to their den sites, which is south of here, I believe. And now we're having to stretch further afield to find food. Which suits us perfectly, because now we get a chance of seeing them. We did come across a wild dog kill on the Arethusa airstrip just before I headed off before the weekend, so they have been coming up here. Such a beautiful evening here. I'm just gonna try and find a spot where we can switch off and stop and listen. Well, let's do it, man. We sadly missed the sunset, but there still is a beautiful tinge in the sky. Looks like Venus. There's the planet we can see shining up there. And also some beautiful clouds to the north. Can you hear a few pearl-spotted owlets whistling in the distance? Either that or a fork-tailed drongo, which often mimics them.
I can hear a mosquito around a microphone.
And isn't that incredible? VM said he can hear a mosquito buzzing around, and I can see it. It's a high-paced mosquito, but it's all happening out here. And it seems like Jamie and I have had the same thoughts, because I'm told she is also sitting at a beautiful vista and would like to share that with you. So from one angle of the African sky to another. We'll see you later.
Welcome back, everybody, and as you can see, we've also stopped just to enjoy this spectacular sunset that we can see across the rolling hills ahead of us. Really, truly spectacular and striking skies, and that is what we can really enjoy in this winter season, in the dry period, because it does throw up so much dust into the atmosphere. It really brings out the spectacular colors of the setting sun. And just a little bit of cloud coming in now that we're towards the end of the evening, and I know that James mentioned this morning that he suspected we might be seeing a front coming through, and it is indeed the case. Apparently the temperatures are going to drop, but that's only going to happen in the next day or two. So the cold fronts are pushing up from the Cape, and they do take a while to reach us. And when I say cold fronts, I might be a little bit of a wuss when it comes to the cold, but it's not really that bad. And one of the wonderful things about this job is that you get to be up before the sunrise and you get to be out just after the sun sets. So I never miss a sunrise or a sunset while I'm out here and working in the bush. And that means that I can really notice the change. And now we are starting to see the nice, much longer days, which I do so enjoy. So very, very exciting to start moving into springtime. It's my favorite time of year. when the days really start to lengthen. But it is now getting dark and it's time to whip out the spotlight and to hit my lights and to go and look for some nocturnal beasties. So I know that you guys had a really spectacular sighting with Tingana. Nice to know where he's moved off to after he lost his kudu kill to the Styx Pride last week. He's still out and about, and possibly calling to another leopard just to let them know where he is. I remember going to the various game reserves whenever I was a child and we went on holiday to the bush, and I did so enjoy the night drives that we went on. It was always a special treat for me, and I remember bundling up with plenty of blankets and traveling out with my mom and my dad. So there's nothing like the excitement of a night drive, as I was saying. I did so love it, traveling with my parents, bundled up in the back of the safari vehicle and I do remember asking the guide so many questions because I just wanted to understand absolutely everything. So for those of you who might be new, basically what we're looking for is the reflection of an animal's eyes. So they do have a nice reflective layer at the back of the eyes called the tapetum lucidum that just helps to make the most of ambient light in the area. Just thought I saw a flash of movement in there, but it might have been my imagination. I'm not catching any eye shine. So what that layer does at the back of the eye is it passes the light and gives the brain, passes the light through twice and gives the brain two opportunities to interpret what it's seeing. So all that interpretation that happens with the rod and the cone cells in the eye. But what you guys might not know is that there's also a layer underneath that or below that in quite a few of the diurnal or the daytime animals that actually helps to reduce glare. So it is a dark layer as opposed to a reflective layer, and that does the opposite job during the day so that they're not too blinded by bright sun, which can be the case at this time of year as the sun does pass quite low through the sky in midwinter. I always, whenever I'm teaching people how to spotlight, I always tell them that they're looking for, with nocturnal animals, and particularly the nocturnal predators or animals that really are truly nocturnal, such as civets, their eye shine catches the light of the spotlight and it highlights almost like a hazard sticker or one of those hazard jackets that you see. Nope, I think that was just a nice light colored leaf. To try and get as high as possible with the spotlight, just so as they've lost their leaves, you can actually see far further into the bush than you can in summer. So it's great to take advantage of that. And the nocturnal animals also, because it is cooler earlier, they tend to come out much earlier in winter than they do in summer. And in fact, my only pangolin sightings have been during winter. For those of you who might not necessarily know what a pangolin is, it's a scaly anteater. Really, truly special little animals. Probably one of the most threatened that we have out in South Africa. And very, very rare to see. So, something that I'm always on the lookout for. They are very exciting. I know we're all desperately looking for something a little bit unusual, like a porcupine, a pangolin, and my personal favorite, an aardvark. And the reason it is my favorite is that I have never seen one. Despite spending my entire life in South Africa, and a considerable percentage of that in the bush, there is something about me that whenever I potentially might have seen an aardvark, I have been asleep in the back of the car. I don't know how it's happened, but I seem to have some kind of aardvark curse, and I have yet to see one. So if I suddenly squeal in excitement, it's because I've seen an aardvark. Hopefully I will get to share that experience with all of you. It's my first aardvark sighting, which has to happen at some point. So, quite a spectacular day today. And as always, I thank Andrew the aardvark for all of his fantastic camera work and assistance out here, including that wonderful dwarf mongoose sighting, which I always enjoy. You can just see the beautiful skyline as it starts to get dark. So guys, tomorrow morning I will be out and about again on the sunrise safari, and I'm definitely planning on skirting around the boundaries just to see if I can pick up on any leopard tracks around the area. And I'm still keen to I am still keen on finding out what's happening with the various lion prides in the area. For now, it has been a really wonderful sunset safari, and I do thank you all for joining me. I have enjoyed every minute that I spend out here, even though we spent some time looking at the little things. The little things must never be forgotten, because they are just as interesting and just as exciting. So thank you once again to aardvark, and to Nikki and Kirsty in FC, and thank you, Nikki, once again for the use of your hat. And I will see you all tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari. Have a fantastic day, everyone.
Well, what a way to finish off an incredible afternoon and day, really, here on Safari Live. We've had great action both this morning and this afternoon, and as always, it's a pleasure to share it with you, the viewers, who without joining us, we wouldn't have anyone to share these amazing moments with. So thanks so much for joining in on the show and sending through your questions. Sorry if we didn't answer them. And I guess all of us who were lucky enough to see Tingana vocalize tonight have got to have a very big smile on their face. I know for me that was almost a once-in-a-lifetime sighting. He was so close to us, and it was perfect golden afternoon sunlight. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and a big thanks to Nikki in Final Control, and Kirsty, who's lending her a hand. Jamie and James, Team James, will be out in the morning. I've got the morning off. Enjoy it with them, and we'll see you all next time.